The moment you pick up your keys, your cat's heart rate has already changed. Not when you walk out the door, not when you call out goodbye from the hallway. The second your fingers close around those keys, that's how precisely your cat has been mapping your departure. And what most owners never realize is that the way you leave and what you leave behind is either teaching your cat that the world is safe or slowly convincing them it isn't. Here's what makes this more complicated than most people think. Cats don't experience your absence the way you imagine. They aren't simply waiting. They are napping contentedly until you return. A 2019 study from Oregon State University found that cats show measurable signs of secure and insecure attachment, the same attachment categories researchers use for human infants and their caregivers. Your cat isn't indifferent to your absence. They're responding to it with a nervous system that evolved to treat the loss of a safe figure as a survival-level event. And most of the things owners do before and during their time away make that response significantly worse. Stay with me, because later in this video, we're going to get to something that researchers only recently documented about what cats actually do in the first hour after their owners leave. It's something most owners never see. And when you understand it, it changes everything about how you prepare to go. Most people have been told the same thing. Cats are independent. They're not like dogs. They don't need constant attention. They're fine on their own. And in some ways, that's true. But that framing has caused millions of cat owners to underestimate what their cats are actually experiencing and to make choices out of love and good intention that quietly adds stress to an animal who has no way to tell them. Here's the thing about cats. They don't show distress the way dogs do. They don't bark. They don't scratch the door. They don't howl. Their distress is quieter, more internal. It shows up in overgrooming, in hiding, in changes to eating patterns, in a subtle shift in how they greet you or stop greeting you when you come home. By the time most owners notice something is wrong, the pattern has often been building for months. And it started with small things. Things that seemed completely harmless. There's a scenario I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this. A cat owner careful, attentive, genuinely devoted to their cat who did everything they thought was right before a work trip. Food left out, water topped up, clean litter, a neighbor stopping in every other day, came home to a cat who seemed completely fine. But over the weeks that followed, something shifted. The cat stopped coming to the door when keys jangled, started disappearing when bags came out, developed a small bald patch on one leg from repeated overgrooming. The owner assumed it was random, maybe a skin issue, maybe just a phase. It wasn't. It was communication. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what was happening and why it started long before that trip ever took place. 1. And this is the one most owners never think about because it seems so small. The way you say goodbye. In a moment, I'm going to show you what your departure routine is actually doing to your cat's nervous system. And it's something that turns a well-meaning farewell into one of the most reliable anxiety triggers in your cat's day. But first, here's the part most owners never notice. Cats are extraordinary pattern readers. Not just visual patterns, sound patterns, scent patterns, behavioral sequences. A 2017 study published in the journal Animal Cognition found that cats can distinguish their owner's voice from a stranger's voice with a high degree of accuracy and respond physiologically to each in measurably different ways. They're paying attention to everything you do in sequence every single day. And that means your departure has a ritual whether you know it or not. The shoes going on, the bag being lifted, the keys. To your cat, that sequence is a sentence, and they've been reading it for as long as you've lived together. Most people assume a long, emotional goodbye is kind. That leaning down, talking softly, giving extra strokes before you leave is reassuring. Here's what's actually happening in cat language. When you become emotionally elevated, when your voice changes pitch, when you slow down and make sustained eye contact, when you hold them a beat too long, your cat reads those signals as a stress response. You're not telling them everything is fine. You're telling them something is about to happen that you're anxious about. To your cat, your emotional goodbye is a warning signal, not a comfort. This goes back thousands of years. In the wild, a cat's survival depended on reading subtle behavioral cues in other animals, including humans, to predict danger. A change in demeanor, a hesitation in movement, an unusual behavioral sequence. All of these were data points worth acting on. Your long, loving goodbye is, in the language your cat evolved to speak, a disruption in normal behavior. And disruption means potential threat. The practical takeaway is not to stop saying goodbye, it's to make your departure boring, consistent, unremarkable. Leave through the same door, at the same energy level, with the same brief routine. The more mundane your departure, the less your cat's nervous system has to brace for. Most owners wish they'd known this earlier because by the time the emotional goodbye has become a habit, your cat has been receiving a low-grade stress signal every single time you leave for years. That compounds, and most cats have never once been able to tell them. 2. The food mistake that's more common than you think and what it's actually communicating. Here's what most owners do. They either pile up extra food before a long absence, thinking more is safer, or they rely on someone stopping in irregularly to top up the bowl. Both of these feel like reasonable solutions. Both of them disrupt one of the most stabilizing forces in your cat's day. Cats are not free feeders by nature. Their hunting instinct is wired to anticipate meals at specific intervals. Multiple small hunts, multiple small payoffs, spread across the day in a rhythm that the body expects. When you pile food up and leave, you're removing that rhythm entirely. To your cat, the absence of the meal routine isn't just inconvenient. It's a signal that the normal pattern of the world has broken down, and the normal pattern of the world is what tells them they're safe. Here's what makes this even more fascinating. A 2020 study in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior found that feeding schedules were among the most significant environmental predictors of stress levels in home alone cats. Not toys, not square footage, not even social contact frequency. Feeding routine. The predictability of food arriving at a familiar time was, for a substantial portion of cats studied, more calming than almost any other single environmental variable. For longer absences, an automatic feeder isn't just a convenience, it's a behavioral anchor. It sends a message your cat can understand. The system is still working. The world is still functioning the way it should. That might sound abstract. But to a cat whose entire sense of security is built on predictability, that message is foundational. In cat language, a consistent meal appearing on schedule says, "This space is still being governed. You are still protected. Things are as they should be." And most cats will settle significantly faster after that signal than after any amount of enrichment you can scatter across the floor. 3. The silence you're leaving behind and what it's doing to your cat that you can't see. Before I tell you this, I want to say something that might shift how you think about your home environment entirely. Because this isn't just about entertainment or keeping your cat busy. It's about what your absence sounds like. Your home, when you're in it, has a constant audio signature. Footsteps on the floor, the sound of water running in the kitchen, a phone buzzing on a table, your voice, the specific acoustic texture of you being present. When you leave, that audio environment collapses completely. And for a cat whose stress response is partly governed by auditory input, that collapse is significant in ways that aren't always visible. A 2016 study from the University of Wisconsin found that cats responded to species-appropriate sounds, birds, small animal calls, nature frequencies, with measurable reductions in stress markers compared to cats left in silence. But here's the part most people skip over. Human voice, audio, talk, radio, podcasts. Familiar television programs produce similar calming effects, specifically in cats who have been regularly exposed to human voice in their home environment. In other words, leaving the television on isn't just background noise. For your cat, it is a simulation of presence. It is a substitution for the audio environment they associate with safety. Think about that for a second. Your cat has mapped what your home sounds like when you're there. When you leave in silence, you're not just removing yourself, you're removing the entire acoustic world they associate with being okay. Leaving something behind, a radio, a playlist, a program with human speech, isn't silly or overly indulgent. It's giving your cat something real to hold on to while they wait. Most owners go their cat's entire life never thinking about this. And their cat, every single day of every absence, has had to navigate that silence with nothing. And hey, if this is starting to change how you see what your cat is actually experiencing, hit subscribe. Every video on this channel is built around exactly this, helping you understand what your cat has been trying to communicate. It's the best way to make sure other owners get to hear this too. 4. The litter and water details that go deeper than most people realize. This one might feel more practical compared to what we've been talking about, but there's a behavioral and instinctual layer here that changes the meaning entirely. Cats are extraordinarily sensitive to smell. Their olfactory system is roughly 14 times more sensitive than a human's. And their litter box isn't just a bathroom, it's a territory marker, a sensory environment, a space that carries information about the state of their world. A dirty litter box isn't just unpleasant for your cat, it becomes a source of ambient, low-level stress that compounds every hour you're away. In the wild, cats instinctively avoided areas that carried the scent of accumulated waste, because in nature, that scent attracts predators. Even a fully domesticated, indoor cat carries that instinct in their nervous system. When their litter box crosses a certain threshold, something in them registers it as a threat signal. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently, in the background, layering onto an already elevated stress load that has nowhere to discharge. The practical answer is straightforward. Multiple litter boxes if you're going to be away longer than a day, self-cleaning options for extended trips. But here's the deeper takeaway. The state of your cat's environment while you're gone is a direct communication to their nervous system about whether things are okay. A clean, familiar, well-maintained space says, someone is attending to this. The world is still being looked after. And that message matters more than most owners ever know. Water placement follows the same logic. Many cats will refuse to drink from a bowl placed directly next to their food, and this isn't fussiness or a quirk. It's an instinct that traces directly to wild survival behavior. In nature, still water near a kill site or food source could easily become contaminated. Running water, water located separately from food that was safe water, that was water worth trusting. A cat water fountain isn't a luxury item. It's a behavioral accommodation for a survival instinct that has never left, even after thousands of years of living indoors. Cats who use fountains consistently drink more water, which reduces the risk of urinary issues that stress can exacerbate. The biology and the behavior are connected all the way down. 5. What you're actually leaving out and what your cat goes looking for when you're gone. Most people tidy up before they leave. Some owners clean quite thoroughly, wash the blankets, fluff the pillows, wipe down surfaces, leave the home feeling fresh and organized. And here's what almost nobody realizes. That's one of the most disorienting things you can do for a cat who's about to spend extended time alone. Your scent is a biological anchor for your cat. This isn't sentiment, it's chemistry. Cats have a specialized olfactory structure called the Jacobson's organ, located in the roof of the mouth, that allows them to process complex chemical information from the environment with extraordinary precision. Your personal scent, the specific layered chemical signature you leave on clothing, blankets, furniture, pillows, activates this system in a way that researchers now directly associate with behavioral calming. Not comfort in the vague sense. Measurable, documented calming. A 2021 study from researchers at Oregon State University found that cats in mildly stressful environments showed significantly reduced anxiety markers when objects carrying their owner's scent were present in the space compared to cats in the same conditions without those objects. Not a recording of the owner's voice, not a photograph, not a toy they loved. The physical scent object. To your cat, your worn sweatshirt on the couch isn't clutter. It is the closest thing to you being in the room. It activates the same neurological pathway. It says the same thing your presence is. Most owners go their cat's entire life without leaving a single intentional scent anchor. They clean up, they freshen the space, they leave behind an environment that smells only of their absence. And their cat, every single time, has had to navigate that absence without anything solid to hold on to. Think about what that means over years, over hundreds of departures. Your cat, alone in a freshly cleaned home, moving from room to room, finding nothing that tells them you are ever there, finding nothing that says you're coming back. 6. And remember earlier when I said there's something researchers recently documented about what cats do in the first hour after you leave? This is it. And this is where I want to come back to the cat owner I mentioned at the beginning, the one who did everything right on the surface and came home to a cat who seemed completely fine. Here's what was happening when they weren't there. Researchers conducting home observation studies using remote cameras documented a behavior pattern in the first 20 to 40 minutes after an owner's departure that almost no one in the general public knows about. In study after study, a significant number of cats engaged in what researchers began calling owner scent investigation. They moved through the home, visiting specific locations associated with the owner, their side of the bed, their favorite chair, the spot on the couch where they sat most often, their discarded clothing. The cats paused at these locations. Some vocalized quietly. Some kneaded. Some sat very still and slow blinked in the direction of the owner's scent. Some circled the same spot multiple times before settling. What they're doing is checking. Not for food, not for danger, not for something to do. They're moving through your home looking for evidence that you still exist in it. Evidence that you're coming back, that the world is intact. And the quality of what they find in those locations, whether your scent is present, whether familiar objects are in their familiar positions, whether the environment still carries the texture of the life you share, determines how quickly their nervous system can settle into waiting versus staying in a state of low-grade alert. The owner in the scenario had, without knowing it, built a departure that activated almost every anxiety pathway their cat had. Emotional, elevated goodbyes that spiked their cat's stress before they'd even close the door. A freshly cleaned apartment with minimal scent anchors left behind. Irregular, unpredictable check-ins from a neighbor the cat barely recognized. No feeding schedule to speak of. Week after week of this, compounding quietly, until their cat's nervous system had effectively learned a single lesson. When the human leaves, the safe world goes with them. And there's nothing left behind that says, it's coming back. The bald patch on the leg, the hiding when bags came out, the stopped greetings at the door. None of that was random. None of it was a skin condition or a phase. It was communication, the only kind available to an animal who has no other language to use. It was a cat saying, in the only way they could, something has been wrong for a long time, and I haven't known how to tell you. Because to your cat, you are not just their owner. You are the evidence that the world is safe. The sound of you moving through the kitchen, the scent of you pressed into the pillow, the predictable arrival of food at the right time, the familiar acoustic signature of a home that contains you. These are not comforts layered on top of security. They are the architecture of your cat's entire sense of security itself. And every time you leave, your cat goes looking for the parts of that architecture you left behind. So leave them something to find. Leave the worn sweatshirt on the chair. Keep the automatic feeder running on schedule. Leave a voice on in the background. Walk out the door calmly, without ceremony, without the long goodbye that tells them something is wrong. And know that when you're gone, they will move through the rooms you shared, slowly, carefully, nose to fabric, nose to cushion. And what they find will tell them everything they need to know about whether to panic or to wait. Your cat has been doing this every time you've ever left the house. And most of the time, they've been finding very little. Not because you didn't love them enough, because nobody told you that love, in the language of a cat, sometimes looks like a worn-out sweatshirt left exactly where you dropped it. That's what they've been asking for. Every time they press their face into your sleeve, every time they follow you to the door, every time they sit in the exact warm spot where you were sitting 5 minutes before. They're not being clingy. They're memorizing you. They're collecting evidence. They're building from the traces you leave behind. The only argument they have that you're coming back. Give them a stronger argument.